My name is Kathleen Sexton, and this is the case study for EDL 856. One of the first things after reviewing the study is understanding what I know. The things that were taken from the case study were that there are tensions that exist, both on the side of administrators and parents. Both have experienced previous issues and encounters, and so there's a little bit of hesitation in wanting to begin a new group. There are also is from the case study and understanding that educators are the ones that are expected to do all of the work, and everything that when it comes to students, that effort is expected to be from the teachers. And the last thing that I know is that the diversity of the involvement is limited, that only certain individuals have been outreached to and have been discussed with. The principal specifically talks about how he has good rapport with the community, but it is come from sources of people who have called him to tell him that, and so it's a very minor account of everyone. The things that would be really helpful to know that we don't know is that there was a previous PTO or PTA, but we don't know the reason that it dispersed, and we don't know why it is inexistent or what those reasons are. The next piece that would be extremely important to know would be why and what methods the principal used to try and incorporate more parent involvement into the school district. And we know that when he first arrived, he tried, but we don't know what methods he did. And also at the end of the case study is discussed the negative consequences, and those weren't really elaborated on. So it would be important to understand what the principal's ideas and thoughts are on what those negative consequences would actually be. So based off of those situations, we can then pinpoint that there's unawareness. The community is really unaware of the importance of parental involvement. They just view it as work, and those preconceived notions are ultimately just hindering the education of the students. There's also lacking collaboration. The administration and the school are not discussing things as well as they should be with the parents in order to clarify the goals of parent involvement and what the purpose of parent involvement is. And so those things and those methods of collaboration need to be developed in order to increase parent involvement. And there's not any innovation in attempting to bring parent involvement back to the school. The principal didn't elaborate on what his previous methods were, but in this specific scenario, they gave information to students to take home to their parents, and unfortunately sometimes those letters don't actually pass through the right hands, whether the student forgot it at school or just forgot to tell their parents about it. They have busy lives, and so you can't leave that as your only resource to reach out and begin the process of communicating and trying to get parent involvement. So my proposed plan then begins with one of the most important things, which is just gathering information. And we are left in the case study with an opportunity that only 8 parents have arrived, which in the eyes of the principal seemed to be a hindrance. But it would hinder the parent involvement more if that was not developed. So instead of completely closing this door and telling these parents to go away, probably the better option would be to immediately just ask for input. You know, see what the parents perceive to be as their role in parent involvement and as a part of the education system. And if there are some gaps and some misunderstandings of what that role looks like, elaborate with parents that it's not just work, it's enhancing and providing programs and opportunities for students to have a better education and ultimately be more successful. And then the next important part is just evaluating those results. It's kind of a time-intensive process, but once those results are gathered from multiple sources and individuals, go through with stakeholders, go through with the school board members and all of the administration and some of the teachers and educators, and work through what everyone understands parent enrollment to be, and then from there, when you have a better understanding of everyone, then develop a plan to establish change. And from that, then you can implement just parent involvement in small ways. You know, it might be something as simple as providing an opportunity for parents and students to have a fun night, you know, just so you increase the opportunity for parents and student and school interaction for everyone. And then you can begin to establish that change based off of those results. And then after some time, because of the lack of success in previous programs, it will be important to make sure and go back that you review the progress that the programs are making. How is parent improvement progressing, and in that understanding that it's going to be a time-intensive process. You're not going to get parent interaction immediate right off the bat, which is obvious from the gathering of 8 parents, and so you're going to need to take steps and make sure that you go through a very organized plan so that you can give this opportunity for parents to be a part of the education system the strongest potential to succeed as possible. And in order for this plan to work, you're going to need persuasion. Parents and even administration have some preconceived notions about what parent involvement looks like, and they have negative connotations with them. And in order to revert and reverse those opinions, you're going to need to persuade your audiences, both with your administration and the community, but you're going to have to go about it in a way that's respectful. And so that's where the persuasion techniques of presenting both sides and understanding your crowd will both be critical so that you can have a successful interaction with your parents. And teamwork. This isn't something that can just be thrown together between a principal and an assistant principal. You need your stakeholders involved. You need your board members involved. You need your administration and your educators. You know, what would they like to see with parent involvement? And other people in the community, what would they like to see? How do other schools implement parent involvement? And with all of those things, it will take time, but ultimately there will be parent involvement which will be enhanced, and hopefully a better opportunity for students. Which, when it comes to parent involvement and parent apathy, the student focus is the most important thing, and that's the message that has to be portrayed back to the parents. Is the education system is not wanting work from parents, they're wanting them to invest. You know, invest in the future of your students, provide them with an opportunity to be a part of their education system, give parents an opportunity to voice how they feel things could be improved, and by doing that you value their opinion, and then they will begin to invest in the same things that the school is trying to invest in, which are the students. And because that relationship has been diminished, those schools need to provide efforts and have efforts to invest in the future of students. The next thing is just involvement. You know, the plan encourages everyone to be involved. It includes ways to outreach to parents, you know, through email and through radio ads and even newsletters and things that can be sent home to parents, or flyers, or have announcements at different city or council meetings. There are multiple ways to reach out and make sure that every parent is aware of the opportunity to make a difference in their child's education. And the last thing is just the influence. Ultimately, students have to have a great education system, and the stakeholders and parents and everyone involved with the education system, they're the ones that provide the opportunity for influence in a child's life. And in this case study briefing, we didn't hear anything mentioned about the school board or leaders within the community, and so their input could really provide some enlightening theories and ideas that might increase parent involvement. when I originally read through this, one of my initial concerns was just the principal's unfamiliarity with his community. It seemed like they were completely satisfied with only getting feedback from parents who had approached him, which is a concern. The parents that are not voicing their opinions are probably the ones that have an opinion to voice, and so reaching out and understanding their stances and making sure that there's not a gap of information is key. The other concern was frustration. The principal, whatever the interaction with getting parent involvement previously, had created some tension and frustration, and that's a concern. As an administrator, it's important to take that leadership role and understand that you are going to be in a position where you can encounter some tension and some resistance from parents, but you have to think innovatively and really work to build that relationship with parents so that you have a better education system for your students. And the unresourcefulness. The letters were sent out what appeared to be last minute according to the case study, and they were only sent out through one avenue of communication, and that's not going to get a very strong result. Things need to be planned previously and repeated multiply, and maybe even have multiple different times for different parents to come, and maybe there were conflicts. Just make sure that when you're trying to get parent input that you're reaching them resourcefully so that you can get everyone involved and not limiting it to a very small group. The unresolved issues then are still the disconnect. What was the initial reason for the dissembling of the PTO and PTA? Why did they no longer exist? Why did those programs why did those programs stop? And implementing a program that draws on the voice of the entire education system may not completely resolve all of these past issues, but there need to be steps to make sure that those issues are addressed and then solved. There also needs to be a careful consideration of the tensions. The reason for that disconnect may have provided for some really hard feelings, and so making sure that all of those things are resolved and everyone's concerns are voiced, and that goals are established and that objectives are established within the new parent involvement, whatever the capacity may be based off of the results of the plan. And finally, Standard 4 just sets the expectations for collaboration. In this case study, the community separation is evident, and ultimately the lack of influence from parents hinders the education of the students, and the role of those parents and community members just increases student success in and out of the classroom. If you have an entire community working towards one goal, which is working towards having an education system that encourages and enhances the learning of students, students will have more success. And that happens through collaboration between everyone involved in that education system. And the parents right now are showing poor investment in the meeting because of the initial poorly implemented plan. And so that's why my proposed plan has some planning and some thought behind it, and there might be, it may not be a perfect plan. It's something that needs to be run by other administrators and stakeholders, but it's an opportunity to take a step in the right direction. And so the issue really with this plan can then be addressed through the proper channels and then solved, and a new opportunity for the community to grow their involvement will exist. Ultimately, the goal is just to provide a great opportunity and a great learning environment for students, and I hope this plan will be successful. Thank you.